Radio Lewis. Local webcasting for a worldwide audience.
Yeah, hello. You're listening to Radio Lewis, where the music matters. My name is Steve Brooks, and this is Vapour Trails. Good Lord, I'm out of breath listening to that. That was Love Sculpture from 1969 and a tune, The Sabre Dance. That was fiery and energetic dance in a ballet, apparently. Wouldn't it? But just anyway, yeah, that was Love Sculpture, and that was also on guitar. There was Dave Edmunds, who later went into be Rockpile and a whole load of other things. And I was even thinking at one point doing a show just on Dave Edmunds because he's kind of involved with so many different things, and we may get round to that at some point. Anyway, is that the telephone I can hear ringing?
Mr. Carter. Is there a Mr. Carter in the room?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Roy Budd with the theme tune from Get Carter from 1971. And, yeah, today's show is basically instrumentals. I was kind of been wanting to do this for a while, and I thought, yeah, why not? And so I just kind of put this together myself. So, unfortunately, there's no requests today. But, yeah, and... That's a marvellous soundtrack, the Get Carter one, actually. It's a fantastic film as well, but, yeah, really recommend getting your hands on the soundtrack by jazz composer Roy Budd. And also on this show, we've got a compilation of choice. The next track is from that, and the compilation is called Go-Go. 20 swinging beat instrumentals. Yeah, so it's mainly stuff kind of around Joe Meek. And his studios. Joe Meek, for those of you who don't know, was just this amazing kind of, yes, he was a genius producer who just did the weirdest things to get sounds. And his recording studio was actually above a hat shop. It was like basically some rooms, including the bathroom and various things, and he would just do the weirdest stuff to get the sounds. Probably most famous for tune Telstar, which I'm not going to play today, but that's also the name of a really good biopic about Joe Meek as well, which is another thing I recommend. But the track I'm going for first is a lot of these groups did takes on kind of classical music, a bit like the Sabre Dance heard just a moment ago. And this is a take on Greensleeves, which apparently is accredited to Henry VIII, I think. I can't imagine he wrote it, and probably someone else did it for him and he chopped their head off and then claimed the credit. But anyway, this is a group who, according to this, are called the Fabulous Flea Wreckers, and this is Green Jeans. Yeah, that was the Fabulous Flea Wreckers and Green Jeans from 1960. Today's compilation of choice, Go-Go 20 swinging beat instrumentals, and there'll be some more swinging beat instrumentals later. So yeah, if you want to move the furniture and have a bit of a twist, it's probably a good time. Next up, we've got another bit of jazz, although I'm not a huge fan of jazz, but this is pretty good. This was actually a TV theme for a Anthony Newley comedy that was very, very strange. It was, I think it was called The Weird World of Gurney Slade or something along those lines. I can't quite remember now. But this is the theme tune by a guy called Max Harris. This is also from 1960. love that. That's really cool, isn't it? Yes, that's called Gurney Slade, and it's actually from the strange world of Gurney Slade, not the weird world. I had to look it up, which was an anti-Newley, very peculiar comedy that was on in the early 60s, and that track's actually taken from a compilation I featured before, which is the glam rock kind of history, Oh Yes We Can Love. And apparently Gurney Slade did have quite an influence on David Bowie as well. But I seem to remember that track being used in lots of things. It kind of reminds me of Vision On, you know, those kind of kids programs from the 70s. But anyway, yeah, this is Vapour Trail's instrumentals. And next up, we've got a bit of surf music. And of course, surf music, yeah, loads and loads of instrumentals. The one that I picked out is on a box set called Surf City. This is a guy called Jerry Cole. Now, Jerry Cole basically worked under loads and loads of pseudonyms. He was a session player and was turns up in the Wrecking Crew, who were basically the backing band for literally almost everybody in the States during the 60s. He was also apparently in the Champs, who I think they did Tequila, didn't they? But anyway, this is Jerry Cole and his Spacemen from 1964, and this is Surf Age. So yeah, many years ago I used to work at R Price Records, and we were allowed to play almost anything we liked, really. I was in the shop one day and I just put this CD in the player ready to play, but before I could press play, a lady came to the counter and she said, "Oh, I'm looking for this music, and it's in a film and I don't remember what it is, and it's something to do with canoes." And I went, "Oh yeah, it's this." yeah, needless to say, the woman nearly had a heart attack. But yeah, that's exactly what she came in for. And I don't know what you call that. Serendipity, the universal joker or something, or just a pure coincidence. Unfortunately, we only had it on CD and she won it on cassette, so it didn't end particularly well. I think we sent her off to another shop. Yeah, next up we got another track from the compilation of choice, the 20 swinging beat instrumentals. Yeah, this is a band called the Moon Trackers, and again, it's another Joe Meek production. And apparently, when the Moon Trackers went to Joe Meek, they had a 16-year-old Rod Stewart as their vocalist, and Meek just wasn't interested in the singer, but really wanted the band to do an instrumental. So they did, and this is from 1961, and this was I think their only hit. And also it features Joe Meek he's the one doing the strange screaming in this as well. But this is Night of the Vampire. Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. I love that. That's the Moon Trackers and Night of the Vampire from 1961, including Joe Meek screaming there. The echo on that's amazing. They probably did record that with a microphone down the toilet. That was one of his things to do. Yeah, next up, more from the 60s. Yeah, kind of indulging myself, really. One of my favourite albums that I found... No idea where I found it. But it's a band called Sounds Incorporated, and they were pretty big in the early 60s for supporting the Beatles, amongst other people. They also did lots of TV themes. I've got an album literally called Sounds Incorporated from 1964. The notes on the back are just fantastic because they're so hip and groovy, because one of them's called Griff, and in inverted commas. But yeah, the track I've chosen off there is a cover of the Marquis' Last Night, which some of you might recognise as the play-out music for the TV show Bottom.
last night, lad.
OMG. It's Vapour Trails on Radio Lewis.
Oh yeah, I was getting down and groovy with that one. That's Small Faces and Grow Your Own from 1966, and that's on an album called The Decca A and B Sides, which is really, really good if you got to check it out. And yeah, that was the B side of their hit Shalalala Lee. And before that was Sounds Incorporated and their version of the Marquis Last Night. Yeah, next up, one that's a bit of a Marmite song, as in people either love it or hate it. But this is from 1972, and it's a track that was originally written by a German guy called Gershom Kingsley, who put an album together called Music to Moog by. He was one of the very first people to use a Moog live in concert. Yeah, he had this song in 1969 called Popcorn, which 3 years later was covered by a band called Hot Butter and became an enormous hit. Both sides of the Atlantic, and I think my dad had the album of this, and the picture of Hot Butter on the other side. They kind of look like guys that you wouldn't necessarily think were in a band. They did kind of look like anyone that goes to a science fiction con. They look like the guys from Tech, if you know what I mean. Anyway, this is Popcorn. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, Hot Butter from 1972 and Popcorn. And yeah, the original version of that was, which, like I say, was on a Music to Moog buy. I was just looking up that album, and apparently it also has some Beethoven on there, some Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and Paperback Writer. So I think I might have to investigate that. That'd probably be hilarious. Next up from 1968, and going to give this a shout out. I've got no request, but one shout out. This is for Sally Robinson, who I know loves this one. This is Mason Williams and Classical Gas. Oh, just gorgeous, isn't it? Mason Williams and Classical Gas from 1968. From 1962 now, bit of Shadows. Why not? You know, you can't really have an instrumental program without some Shadows on it. And to me, this particular tune just sums up the early 60s. And I always have this kind of weird fantasy in my head, well, amongst other weird fantasies, I guess, of just wearing a suit constantly and having old coins, you know, old imperial money. Mind you, where we're going, probably end up with that anyway. But yeah, so from 1962, this is Shadows and Wonderful Land. Oh, I love that. Those are Shadows there in Wonderful Land. And next up, like I say, I've been playing loads and loads of 60s stuff and a couple from the 70s, but, I've got something almost modern. Well, 35 years ago. But, so this is the Sid Presley Experience, and this was the B-side to their first single, Hot 234, and this is Public Enemy #1.
The place is surrounded. Come out with your hands up. Money's gonna get me!
Oh, yes, I love that as well. Yeah, Sid Presley Experience, the forerunners of The Godfathers and Public Enemy #1 from 1984. Next up, we've got a final track from the compilation of choice, the 20 swinging beat instrumentals. And this is a guy called Floyd Kramer, who was a prolific session pianist, and he was also played piano on some of Elvis's biggest and earliest hits. He's the guy that plays the kind of ghostly, like, I can think of like describing as skeleton notes that you have in Heartbreak Hotel. And he also came up with this thing called the slip note, where he would take a note that was off key and kind of slide into the right note as well. And he was also apparently credited with inventing the Nashville sound, whatever the Nashville sound is. Must admit, I'm not too sure. But anyway, this is absolutely brilliant. This is from 1961, and this is On the Rebound. Yeah, from 1980 there, that was the Specials, and Holiday Fortnight from the album More Specials. Before that was the very, very marvellous Floyd Kramer. Just got a couple of other tunes to go now. The next one was a bit of a mystery tune, apparently, when it came out. It was one of the, like a lot of these things, it was put together in a studio by session musicians, and therefore there wasn't really anyone credited with it, and when it came to performing it on Top of the Pops, they just kind of got someone to stand in. And apparently this was a B-side of a single by an American band called Wind, who then, when the single came over here, the BBC played the wrong side, so they played this particular instrumental. Then Dick James Music tried to get the rights for it, but they couldn't, so they kind of covered it, apparently with Elton John on piano, but they didn't like that, and then they kind of went around the houses, got a whole load of other session musicians in, and finally came up with this. So from 1970, this is Grooving with Mr. Blow by Mr. Blow. Apparently, the guy playing the harmonica there was someone called Harry Pitch, who later on went to do the harmonica on the theme tune of Last of the Summer Wine. But don't let that put you off. That was Mr. Blow and Grooving with Mr. Blow, with maybe or maybe not Elton John playing on piano there. Apparently, the single did have some other Elton John songs on it as well, so don't know. But anyway, we're coming up to the last one. And talking of TV theme tunes, this song you will definitely, or this tune rather, you will definitely recognise from when it's used on TV. Before we play it, just to say thanks to all the sharers and carers as ever, and if anyone wants to get in touch, the email is vapourtrails66@gmail.com, and I'm going to leave you with this. This is the 1967 reworking of the 1963 track I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free by Dr. Billy Taylor. And yes, you'd probably all recognise this.
Okay, that was the last song. You can fast forward and turn over the tape now.
Radio Lewis. Local webcasting for a worldwide audience.